I want to welcome everybody. I'm Frank Talty. Good evening. I'm the co-director of the UMass Lowell Center for Public Opinion. On behalf of the Center and UMass Chancellor Jackie Maloney, the university welcomes you to tonight's debate. The Center for Public Opinion was created back in 2009 by then Chancellor Rady Mam with a mission to, quote, promote civic engagement and enhanced understanding of the political process. And that's what I'm sure will happen tonight. So we're pleased to present tonight's debate in conjunction with our media partner for the night, the Lowell Sun. Lowell Sun has also long pursued a mission of promoting civic engagement and enhancing understanding of the political process. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce the moderator for tonight's debate. Chris Scott is the enterprise editor for the newspaper. He's been with the Sun for over 36 years. I know it's hard to believe, but he was very young. And Chris is also has his show on LTC cable called Sunspot, where you get a chance to see many of these candidates in a one-on-one situation and call your attention to that show as well on LTC. Also want to mention that Lowell Telecommunications Corp is filming this debate tonight, which will be rebroadcast, or actually broadcast, at a time and date to be announced. Follow the newspaper for that, or I imagine the LTC website will probably also list it. The times, it's apparently going to be on more than a few times. So for those of you, your friends, your family that can't be with us tonight, let them know that, please. Chris has also been the recipient of many awards for his journalistic work from the New England Press Association, and I'm sure that the way we saw the way he conducted the debate for the Senate candidates earlier is any indication. You will have a much better understanding of the issues leading up to the election, which is only 19 days away, folks. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Scott.
Thanks, Frank. Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming tonight. I want to thank UMass Lowell for partnering in this debate with us. I'd like to acknowledge my boss here, too, who's here tonight, Jim Campanini, the editor of The Sun. He and I have been doing these debates now for several years, and they've been pretty well received. So without further ado, let's bring in the four candidates running for the 18th Middlesex District State Representative seat. Good evening, gentlemen. To my left is former school committee member and city councilor Jim Leary. To Jim's left is Sam Meas. Sam, good evening. We haven't had a chance to chat yet tonight. To his left is the incumbent in this seat, State Representative Rady Mam. Good evening, Rady. And to his left is former city councilor Rithy Uong, who is a guidance counselor at Lowell High School. So I'll just go over just a couple of quick ground rules. Please put off your cell phones or put the ringer on silent. Someone in the previous debate did not do that, and they were an incredible distraction. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to a question, and if another candidate wants to engage, and we had a little bit of that in the first debate, unfortunately we didn't have that much, that candidate will be given a chance. There is no opening statements, but candidates will be given 90 seconds to make a closing statement. And I just want to acknowledge the two folks here tonight that will be reading the questions. Rick Sobey, who covers City Hall for The Sun, and UMass Lowell student Ryan Callahan, a political science major from Chelmsford. And we also have help with UMass Lowell students Jack Bove, who's covering, he's got the Salvation Army bill, keeping track of the time, and keeping track of the laptop tonight is Julie Lawton. So without further ado, we'll start with the questions. We're going to go alphabetical. Jim, you'll get the first one.
Should the legislature...
I was just going to say, Rick, take it away.
Should the legislature craft legislation that bypasses the Supreme Judicial Court ruling that workers are not required to pay union dues?
No, I don't think they should. I think right now, well, actually, I do think they should. I think unions are a strong product of what this industrial revolution here in Lowell is all about. I think, unfortunately, now what we're having is we're taking unions out of the entire picture. Now, I'm an individual that comes from the private sector. I've never been in a union. I've been a person who had their own small business, a person who's now a vice president in a startup insurance company, and yet I still believe strongly in unions. Unions have allowed what we have, our workday this right now. I think people forget that if it wasn't for unions, we'd be working 7 days a week. We'd be working without the child labor laws. We'd be working without a minimum wage. I think sometimes unions do go over the top, and that I think when you have solid negotiations and appropriate negotiations, you can rein that in. And I've been on the school committee negotiating with a variety of unions, including the teachers union, and sometimes you have to say no to them. But I think if we don't have strong unions, we don't have balance. And if you don't have balance, you have one side taking advantage of the other. And I think that's a problem for the economy. And if anybody who knows about the economy, you need balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim Leary. Sam Meas?
Thank you. I don't think that the SCG, I don't think that the state legislature should bypass the SC. I'm a big proponent of union. I support union. I believe in union. And as Jim has stated, in this country we had come a long way in terms of improving workers' wage and salary and safety. However, we are a country of law. And if the decision by the Supreme Judicial Court has made it, and I think we should respect that.
Thank you. Rady
Good
Mam?
evening, everyone. I remember meeting with a group of these Cambodian and different generation. They were asking about wanting to join the union. Unfortunately, when they met with me, they told me a lot of different things that even among their workers, tell them not to join, fearful of what might happen. I was so honored to meet with the representative from the union and expressing how important it was. It was so nice to show them that we are living in the land of law. I do support the union for all the right reason, that it has protect all of our workers, the men and women who live in the district and also in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rithy Uong?
Thank you. As the only person who's been with the union for close to 30 years, I do believe that the union fees and dues should be paid, and I don't believe that the required not to pay union dues will decrease of the interest of the people who believe in a fair share of the workforce environment. And I think the union will have to strengthen our workforce to believe that everyone lives in with the salaries. Should be respect to the salary and work that they required. And I want to always fight forward as the person who helped to restore the unions, to build a union in Cambodia, participated to make sure that the work in a factory get a fair share of the work. So the unions requirement, I think it should be, the legislature should not bypass, should bypass the rule and make sure that everyone should really pay the union dues so that the service should be fair to everybody.
Thank you. Next question goes to Sam Meas, and it will be posed by Ryan Callahan of UMass Lowell. Ryan?
With the Supreme Court clearing the way for sports betting, would you vote for a bill allowing it? And what would be your conditions?
I would support it. I just like any other venue of betting or gambling. We need to make sure that we have sufficient data and prevention so as people are not betting their savings, their lives, and addicted to gambling. I mean, as it is, we are a nation of gambler. We have casinos in almost every state. The state of Massachusetts, and like any other states, is profiting from the gambling. From the gambling proceed to fund many of our social services. So yes, I am supporting the sport betting, but we do need to make sure that we put some safeguards so that people are prevented and so that families are not broken up as a result of gambling addiction. We need to have counseling to make sure that those who are in those situations are able to get some sort of counseling and treatment.
Thank you. State Representative Rady Mam?
Thank you. Me personally, I'm against gambling, but we do have the right to choose, and that's what's so wonderful about living in a democracy. So with that being clear out, we as a citizen have the choice to do so, but we do have to teach our children that gambling is not a way of life. Thank you.
That's it. Councilor Uong?
Just, I do believe that the gambling has been, betting on sport has been exercised for many years. I think it's great to put the clearing the way for sport betting, but also as we should really have the way to make sure that they don't go exceeding the limitation, because gambling is an addictive issue that almost a lot of people lose home and the family broken apart. We should have a clause, preventive program to make sure that the people who really sport betting should be limited to a certain condition. It depends on their income level, because we do not want the people go beyond the limitation so that the family broken down.
All set? Thank you. Jim Leary.
No, good. I do support supporting gambling. I think it's sports betting. I think it's something, if it's managed appropriately, much like we're doing with the casinos in Massachusetts, where we have prevention for folks that can't handle it and have that gambling disease, which is a real serious issue that destroys families. But I think right now we already have a large illegal gambling sports book that people don't acknowledge. It happens pretty much everywhere, including in the great city of Lowell, including in the 18th District. We've got to acknowledge that this problem exists, and I think if we manage it appropriately, we can do it safely. I think it should be probably in the casinos, managed with the Sports Gambling Commission that we have in the state. It should be taxed so we can get some revenue for it. Part of that revenue should also go to prevention and help people who have that addiction to gambling. But I am in favor of it. I think if it's managed appropriately, it's something that can be fun if it's done well for folks, and it could also generate revenue where we desperately need revenue, not only for prevention, but also for our infrastructure and roads, which in this state and throughout the country is a major problem that the government is not putting the appropriate funding to, and this could be that additional revenue source. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The next question will be posed to Rady Mam by Rick Sobey of The Sun.
Do you believe the state's Chapter 70 funding formula is flawed? If yes, what will you do to make it more equitable for all communities?
Thank you, Rick. Since I've been in office, we actually have been increasing the Chapter 70 funding. Matter of fact, just in the fiscal year of the 2019, we went up to $4.9 billion in chapter funding, Chapter 70, which is an increase of 3.4. Now, of course, with all that formula, you have to realize that it is all about the funding that come together, and that's what we base our decision on. And with being on the Ways and Means, my job is literally to do my best to bring funding right here to the city of Lowell, which consists of $151 million for the fiscal year 2019.
Rithy Uong?
Just, I think this Chapter 70 funding is a little bit too old, and I'm very disappointed that the last legislation did not put that in place so that they can reformulate the Chapter 70 funding. Like community in Lowell's public schools should be able to access to that. We know that we have for short funding, about $150 million, like Representative Mam indicated, and that's why we need that legislation to act on it while we still need it. And also, if you look at it, it's been 25 years, and the foundation's budget committee has recommended to reformulate the formula so that the city of Lowell that full influx with the English language learners, full influx with the special ed services, will access to that pool of money so that reduce the costs of spending, that unnecessary spending that we take away from other sources to pay for those services. So we do need to reformulate it. I think I was disappointed that the last legislation did not recommend that to move forward.
Thank you. Rithy, we'll start with you on this next round of questions.
Hold on, did I answer that question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean,
Sorry
I was
about
in the
that.
school committee for 10 years.
You can cut him
And
to
to
run.
answer it just bluntly, no, it's not appropriate. And quite frankly, nobody in the state understands it. Nobody understands it. The Ways and Means folks don't understand it. None of the state legislators understand it because it's a complicated formula. It has to be revamped, has to be better understood. One thing this question also leads to is special education funding. Right now, when I left the school committee, we had about $12.5 million of out-of-district tuition that we had to pay for out of our budget. We're supposed to get a circuit breaker reimbursement. We don't get the 100% funding for that. So you have a balance between $35,000 and $15,000, that gap that we have to fund out of our regular budget. Then if you have, unfortunately, some folks who have over 6 figures of care, we have inpatient students that we're required as a Lowell Public Schools to pay for, we don't get that reimbursement above, like, I think it's $90,000. This is an issue that causes dramatic effect on the Lowell Public Schools budget. This year, they were ready to lay off library aides and other people. A large part of that is because we're not receiving 100% of our out-of-district tuition for special ed. We need to have that. I will help put legislation to that. I will help educate other legislators to that, legislators, because that's happening in other communities as well.
Thank you. And Sam Meas.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yep.
I was going to make that mistake twice.
Well, I believe that the foundation funding or the Chapter 7 funding formula is flawed. I read it about 10 times, and frankly, I still do not understand it, fully comprehend it, that I can explain to you like an 8-year-old to understand it. Having such a complex formula that no one really understands makes it very difficult to adequately fund an education. For example, while the state require the school district provide transportation to students, but in the education funding, it doesn't fully reimburse the transportation cost. Again, go back to the special ed. I was a board of director for the North, the Professional Development Center, where we have special education for disability students, and to educate these students is costly, and these students are coming from various districts of the community, and the community does not get fully reimbursed for the cost of educating these special needs students.
Thank you. Okay, Rithy, now it is your turn.
My turn now. Okay. Jim, you mentioned that the funding has been shortfalls, and we short of the fundings, and I don't think that the state issue is not one way to look at it, and also look at the administration issue. That as a school committee members, I think we should have a lot to say about how to reformulate the formula, distribute to the school district, and make sure that ensure that funding source that come to Lowell will be distributed strong enough so that we won't short in spending. So I think there's not spending. I don't believe that foolish. From the state, but also from the local level, that we have to monitor clearly how to spend it adequately. That's why I just want to tell you.
Yeah, I think you got a good point about local spending. I think it's an issue that we want to make sure we spend our fair share. I think the challenge is, as you know, as being a guidance counselor, we have so many English second language learners, so many folks with so many challenges that the money in and of itself is not the only issue. I think we need support for folks like in the special education. And when I spoke about the circuit breaker, it's complicated. When I said that, you try to fit that in a minute. Most people don't even know what I just said. Ultimately, what happens is you get a certain dollar value per student. Say it's $12,000, $13,000 per child. $12,000 up to $35,000 is the gap before the circuit breaker comes in. That's money that comes out of our district. That has to change. We're required to facilitate education to special needs students. They deserve that. They need that, but we need to have that funding. A district like Lowell is actually better off than, say, a district like Dracut that's smaller, that can't take, unfortunately, an inpatient facility child or student that we would have to pay for. But we suffer because of that. So we do need to have legislation to change that form. That part of that, as you would know, Rithy, being a guidance counselor, is educating other legislatures that's the problem that's happening to their towns as well. And that's something that I would do.
Sam or Rithy, do you want another crack at this? Hold on. Sam or Rady, at this question?
Go ahead, Rady. Well, I just want to take it that, in fact, the formula is very complex, and the city and towns are being required by the state to fully fund the education of the student based on the tax, property tax. But city and Lowell, we have property tax base may not be the same as the property tax base as the city of Newton or Cambridge. So we are not able to meet these educational costs, especially when it comes to special ed education. Yeah.
Rithy, make it quick.
I just want to refer to Representative Moms, knowing that he's sitting very powerful Ways and Means Committee, and knowing that the Lowell shortfall $150 million last fiscal year, and knowing that the foundation's budget review committee has recommended for the House to look at it before the last session. So what was your role in terms of pushing to make sure that the the recommendation put on our place so that we can review it and get the fair share of the new formula, reformulated formula.
Thank you, Mr. Ong. Obviously, when you're in front of the House and you have 160 members, I do push the best that I can to bring back for literally my constituent in the city of Lowell. With that, the priority has to be straight. With the priority being in front of me, obviously, is that to bring back funding here. Now, like I said, you have 160 members that's fighting for the same thing. But would that priority still remain the same? What is my job? Can I bring all it back? We have 3 representatives, Reverend Golden, Reverend Nangle, and myself, of course, back then with Senator Donahue. We do our best to bring back, and I have to say, Lowell is doing quite well to do that. Now, granted, in terms of running the city, that is the job of the councilor and the city manager.
Thank you. And Jim,
Just to follow
Last-
up, I think
last words.
Last words quickly. Ultimately, it comes down to educating your fellow legislators on the special ed issue and the funding, because they're all being in the same predicament. And that's one of the things you have to understand the issues of what's going on in your community. That's what I can bring to the table in terms of educating people on this thing that's really hurting our school district. That's why they're laying people off. Thank you.
thank you. We'll move on now to the next question. Rithy, this will go to you and be posed by Ryan Callahan of UMass Lowell. Ryan?
If you are elected in November, what is the first bill you will file the following January?
I would push forward to make sure that the foundation's budgets will be pushing forward to be on the floor. That's why we're going to push forward because we need that to reformulate the formula so that the city like Lowell can receive the proper funding like we should be.
Thank you.
Mine would be the same with the Chapter 70 funding, and my second bill would be regarding the special education funding, really funding that 100%. These 2 small changes, which will take an inordinate amount of time because you need to educate your fellow legislators, will actually impact Lowell significantly in the positive. In addition, what I'd like to do in the third bill that I would file immediately in January would be to actually try to go to a biannual budget for Chapter 70. The problem for these school districts are they don't know how to budget. They're budgeting 1 year at a time. So they budget this time. They don't know what type of raises to give to people. They don't know what they need to cut the following year because the budgets go up 1 year, go down the next. Trying to work and have a plan where a biannual budget is something that I would strongly work on. The last thing I think I wouldn't do in January, but I think is important, is starting to look at the judges we have in the Commonwealth. Administrative law judges and workers' comp are appointed for a term. I would take a look at appointing judges as opposed to just having them do it lifetime. That's something that's done throughout the states and done pretty effectively. I wouldn't do it elected judges. I don't think that's appropriate, but I would do appointments because we have problems with people who have a lifetime appointment with no accountability. That's something that I would immediately do. Those 4 bills right away in January would have immediate impact.
And they'll keep you busy.
That would.
Sam?
Thank you. I just want to educate those at home in the audience here is that as a first year or freshman state legislature, you can't file a bill. You can only co-sponsor a bill. So the first bill that I would be co-sponsoring would be, again, the restructuring of the Chapter 70 of the foundation budget. And the second bill that I would be co-sponsoring would be the opiate crisis. This is an issue. It's affecting us, all of us, in our 18th Middlesex District, as well as in the city of Lowell. You have, people who are overdosed left, right, and center. And we need to tackle this issue, not only just at the community level, but at state and as well as the federal level. We need urgent help, we need urgent funding. Opiate crisis is a major issue, and we need to treat it as a crisis, like the way we treated the AIDS crisis back in the early 80s.
Thank you. And Rady Mam?
Thank you. I think when it comes to the funding, as you know, it's always an issue, whether it is the city of Lowell or elsewhere, but again, my concern is still the same. It is a formula that needs to be worked upon. That's why I do my best to do the best that I can in terms of what is given to me in front of me. With that, when you talk to whether it is a school teacher that says, I don't have enough to even support my kids in their own classroom, when the teacher talked to me directly, that's where it hit. That's where I want to say, how can we help the teacher that are actually pulling out their own money to buy supply for the student? That's not right. Now, in terms of working on this subject matter, because education is so important to me, coming to the state, you know already my story. That's why I asked specifically the Speaker of the House to be on education and public safety, because I really, really care about that so much. And every day I continue to do the same thing, asking and to find a better answer.
Okay, some engagement here. Rithy
No, it's
first.
engagement. I thought we only asked for the first bill, so I just shut off at the first bill. I just want my second initial bill that I've allowed. I will push forward for the revisiting the millionaire the share fair tax. I think that's important that we have to bring it back to discuss on the floor, because the fair share tax will give us amount of money to support the school budget, to support transportation, to support the roadway and highway, and I think it's only fair to bring it back, to reintroduce back to the floor. I'm disappointed by governor did not try to push forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rithy. Sam?
Yeah, I just want to give Representative Rady Mam a second chance to really answer this question.
Okay.
Yeah, given that he is a second-term state representative, he has the ability and the prerogative as a state legislator to file a bill. So specifically, which bill will you be filing in January should you get reelected, Mr. Mam?
As of right now, Sam, the most important of all is the road bridge, which I personally and on behalf of the delegation fought for. And thanks to the support of the entire delegation, of course, me taking the leadership role, speaking to the Speaker of the House and All Majority Leader, we secure a $5 million phase to do the road bridge design phase. I'm proud of that. Then if you talk about, in terms of the economic, look at the Judiciary Center. That's $200 million that comes into it. Because of that, you have businesses looking into wanting to come in to the Hamilton-Canal District, which at one point is literally a dead subject. With that, thanks to all the support of the delegation making that possible, now we have businesses that are asking and wanting to come to Lowell.
Let me
Jim?
that's almost laugh out loud funny. You know, I look at Councilor Elliott, look at Councilor Leahy, Councilor Kennedy was here. These are people who have worked on the Rourke Bridge for years and have been advocates for the Rourke Bridge and funding for it. Not only that, but looking at and questioning, is the Rourke Bridge even the correct place to put the bridge when you're looking at Drum Hill and what have you. You just suggested that you're the one who's the lead dog in that legislation. Without the support of Councilor Elliott, Councilor Leahy, Kennedy, and many others, they wouldn't be even talking of the funding. In addition, you're looking at Lowell General and many other businesses that came and lobbied the Speaker at your fundraiser, helped to educate the Speaker on why the safety needs were needed for that bridge to be repaired. So you're not the lead focus on this. This is a team approach that everybody in this room who's an elected official and many other businesses, including UMass Lowell, have been lead fighters for many, many years. This is not something that you came in all of a sudden and helped create. The funding for that may not even be possible for the Rourke Bridge. It may not even be the right spot for the bridge if you're looking at the whole demographic of Drum Hill and how the congestion would be. So this is something that when you get elected to an office, you're not an individual doing it on your own. You're doing it with everybody.
Okay,
and so
Jim,
to
thank you.
say that is just simply
Thank
ridiculous.
you. Representative Mam, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Jim. Obviously, I guess I failed to recommend that it was a lot of meeting that takes place. And with that, matter of fact, we did brought the fire chief, the police chief, the city manager, the engineer, and even the ambulance, both of the company went to the House of Representatives to speak in front of Mass DOT. And yes, it is correct that when I brought the Speaker of the House in, it was wonderful to have the support of all of the members, whether that is Chancellor Baloney, and of course plenty of the councilors that were there. It was a continuing, but matter of fact, when I went to ask for the actual study program, which was supposed to be expired, they would not support it. But I continue to do my job, and that is to speak directly to the Speaker of the House until it was supported. Again, it is a lot of work.
Thank you, Rady. As moderator, I have a little bit of discretion, so I'll give you one more opportunity. If you're reelected and you go down there in January, what is the first bill that you will file?
You see, everybody's thinking about the bill would save the community. It's not the bill, it's all about all of you. Your concern is the high school, the public safety. That is the concern. When I go back to there, it is to finish my job, and that is whether it's securing I already secured $250,000 for the park in the acre and the Highland. That's real money. That's what we need to do. I need to go back to continue the job of finishing up my job, whether it's the Rock Bridge or securing more funding for our city.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to the next question, and I believe this will go to Rithy Uong and will be posed by
I
Rich
just
Schultz.
did it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's me.
you want to double pay for me? I just did it.
No, it's you.
I just did
You
it
just
last
did
time.
it. Yeah, it's me.
Well, you
that
want,
was you.
you want to pound me badly, huh?
Hey, you know
Jim,
what?
It's me.
Take it.
Take it.
All right,
Read the
thank you.
question.
Never say no. When it's given, take it because you can
I
speak
take
first.
that, yes.
Always be the first or the
I'm
last.
0 for 2. The third one, I'm going to give him the hook.
All right.
Jim,
Gets hard. Yeah, I guess if the millionaire's tax proposal came up before the legislature, I would strongly take a look at it. The problem really is what does it actually mean? You mean millionaire, mean 1 million, 10 million, 20 million? I mean, the problem you see in the state of Connecticut, if you go to Connecticut where I have in-laws, a lot of people, a lot of businesses are moving out because they're overtaxed. However, we spoke earlier about raising revenue when we were talking about supporting online gambling, sports betting. You definitely got to take a look at raising revenue to pay for the roads and the infrastructure. Businesses like in the Innovation District that we're trying to create to bring businesses in will not come unless there's really good infrastructure. And why we've been really, really fortunate with the Hamilton Innovation District and the Thorndike Street area, widening it, no business is going to build a $10 or $20 million building without proper infrastructure. The infrastructure comes from the state. So we are going to have to take a look at tax increases. The important part is where does that begin? And who's it actually hit? And how's it actually impact negatively for businesses or not? We don't want to be the state of Connecticut where you have, like Aetna, looking to move out of that, Aetna, which has been there since 1830s, moving out of Hartford to New York. You want to make sure you're drawing businesses in.
thank you, Jim. Sam,
Thank you. I think we got to be careful in terms of what and how we define what is a millionaire, whether it's 5 million, 1 million, 2 million, or 3 millions. And so regardless how we tax, we live in a society where we are requiring services constantly. And those services, whether it's roads, education, medical care, requires revenues, and the state have to find revenue from somewhere, somehow. So one way to really avoid this type of issue and try to stigma people and label them as millionaire or billionaire is to find ways to bring business and to attract business to our state. We need to build better infrastructure, better school system, better regulation to attract business to come here and build business, hire more people. Those people pay taxes and support all the services that we currently need.
thank you, Sam. Representative Mam.
I remember voting for the millionaire's tax. And again, you know, when individuals do very well, naturally, when you ask them to support, which they have been doing so much so already. But as you know, as all of the citizens that lived in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we are very, very caring. We definitely reach into our pocket to contribute. I saw plenty of you put into the bucket, whether it's for the Salvation Army or helping House of Hope. These are crucial times. Again, I supported it, and naturally it is right now going to go to the citizen to vote for.
Thank you, Rithy Uong.
As stated earlier, I think second thing I would move forward is to make recommendation to put the fair share tax or millionaire tax proposal back on legislatures. Why? Because the legislation stated clearly that those who make 1 million or more will add additional 4% on top of that, so that we can get some more funding to fund education, so that the more you fund education, you build a great community and give opportunity to all the students and other people to have a fair share of the economic development that we have. So I believe that this proposal, I strongly support that the way to reduce the cost, spending costs in the different cities and towns, and we can build a strong foundation, educational foundation, so that everybody can have, so that the UMass system won't increase costs so highly that almost everyone cannot afford to go UMass anymore. So this is a great bill that I'm going to look forward to challenge that at the State House.
Thank you. Well, hopefully I'll get this right this time. I believe we're going to start with Sam with a question posed by Ryan Callahan.
What do you think is a fair minimum wage?
There you go. I think a fair minimum wage is what the market can afford. And it's also should be a living wage for some people. I know that for many of us who are low skill, the minimum wage that we are receiving are the only wage that we are getting to support our family. I support the current state legislature that has passed that and continue to increase the minimum wage to $15. But I think at some point we also need to also restudy, look at the number one more time. What should it be? We also want to be cognizant of the fact that there are many youngsters, high school and college students who needs a job in the summertime. And if we increase the minimum wage so high that these youngsters will not be able to have an opportunity to have a gainful experience in the real world, to be able to have a sense and value of work ethic and money.
Thank you, Sam. Representative Mam?
Thank you. I remember Paul coming with a whole group into my office here in Lowell, and they really wanted the support. And Paul, I'm proud to say that we fought hard, and we got that going. And of course, with that as well, I have so much concern because I myself am a small business. So when you talk to the owner of a restaurant, and he says, you know, Rady, I'm afraid that I'm not going to have any funding to hire kids. And yet I met plenty of kids who are off to college and come back and thanking me for the fact that they had that little job that they go in and that little funding they have. They've grown because they learn of life experience of working in that small mom and pop restaurant.
Thank you. Rithy Uong?
I think the question is not about just fair minimum wage. It's also about how we can prepare our students to be a better workforce, so that they can train their skills, so that they can go to work with fully prepared and get better pay. And that's why I always push for the foundation budget, and also push for to go back to review the millionaire tax plan to be back to the legislation, so that we can get a great education, encourage people who has no training skill to go back to a free or lower cost Middlesex Community College or training center, so that they can get a better job. They can access to job opportunities, which pay better wage for them to support their families. So this is not about just minimum wage. It's about to provide a better education, a better training, so that our students can access to a better job.
Thank you. And Jim Leary?
No, I agree with what was just said. I think ultimately, you know, what's fair, I think it should be market-driven. I think you should take a look at students who are in, let's say, high school or whatever, working summer jobs. You know, $15 is probably too much for that market. You know, as a small business owner who's owned a business for 10 years, trying to make payroll and trying to get people to work for you, you're always looking at the market value. So, you know, it's saying that $15 an hour and you're trying to get rent in Lowell, you're trying to buy an efficiency, you know, rent efficiency apartment for $1,000 a month, $15 an hour, you're not going to be able to afford it. So it's not a fair wage for someone who's an adult trying to make a living. However, for a high school student, you know, $12, $10 an hour is a pretty good wage. It's an appropriate wage to learn about how to really be responsible with money, how to work, develop a really good work ethic. It's a challenging issue because you do have small businesses, say restaurants, where a dishwasher making $15 an hour doesn't make any sense. But then you got a 30-year-old guy or a woman who are trying to like pay the rent. They're not going to do that. So there's a balance you can work at that. What Guidance Counselor Uong just said was really the issue. It comes down to education, really educating people to meet the skills that are needed out there in today's economy.
Thank you. Moving on to the next round, we'll start with Rady Mam with a question posed by Rick Sobey.
Is the Safe Communities Act needed or not, and why?
The Safe Community Act, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I know this is one of those touchy subjects, and I have to say it in this way. If you are illegal, we are living in, and all of the base of what we, literally the United States of America, is based on the law. I came here legally. Now granted, the citizenship who are in here, naturally we have to protect them. If they're here illegally, we definitely have to do something by the base of the law that is already enacted and already written. We have to enforce the law that is right here in the governing law of Massachusetts or the federal.
Thank you. Rithy?
I think as a former refugee, I really feel that nobody wants to come to displaced from their homes illegally, live in a place that people look at them differently. Imagine that if the act come in and I and everyone here in this room go places and they just, because you don't look look illegal, they start to stop you everywhere that you needed to. But I believe that I support the police local police department plans that will not ask questions to the people when they stop on the traffic violations, and support the school department's plan that will not inquire any documentation when the kids come to register at the school system. So I think that I support the system that we have now.
All set? Jim Leary?
No, I think what we did in the city of Lowell is correct. I think Rithy just responded to that ultimately. We don't need that. What we need to do is really continue the good, really reaching out to people and making people feel connected. I think that's what the Lowell Police Department does in a very effective manner, and it has been very successful in Lowell. I think the key at the end of the day is if you're legal, you should be, and if you're not, if you're illegal, you shouldn't be. I don't agree with the federal government, which has complete jurisdiction over this, their policies. I think it's going to impact the United States in a negative way, especially with the fastest growing immigrant group being Hispanic, especially out in the West. It doesn't affect Lowell well, it does affect Lowell to an extent, but much more out West, where they are really the economy. And you need them in the economy, whether it be the agricultural economy, what have you. But saying that, the law is what it is, and we need to follow the law. And I think the way Lowell has positioned itself, the Lowell Police Department specifically, has done an excellent job to really bridge this challenging issue.
Thank you. And Sam?
Thank you. This question here, I don't think it should have been asked in the first place. Had our federal government, Congress, the president, done its job, they should have had a comprehensive immigration reform so that people who are here illegally would have a pathway to citizenship, so that DACA would not be living in fear whether they would be deported tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. It is a failure of leadership at the congressional level. This question pertaining to the jurisdiction of the United States of America at the federal level. Now, at our level, at the local level, I want to echo what the rest of my competitor here are echoing, is that we need to work as a community. This is a human nature. It's not a black and white, as dry as it is. But having said that, the law is the law. We also need to follow the law. But as human beings, as fellow community members, we need to welcome, we need to make sure that all those people who are living here feel safe and welcome in the city of Lowell.
Thank you. Now it's time for we're going to move on to the lightning round. We're going to start with you, Rithy, and the questions will be posed by Ryan.
If you had the power to take one show off television, what would it be?
Wow.
That's a curveball.
No, that's all. That's all. The power to take one show off television should be the Fox channel.
Okay, thank you. It's your turn. Time's a wasting.
I think just shut off the TV completely.
Sam?
I will not get into politics, but I think I would take the Jerry Springer show off the table. Yeah.
And Jim?
Oh, I'd take Family Feud off in a minute. It's a horrible show.
Second question, Ryan?
Should the state abandon daylight savings time, switch to Atlantic Standard Time, or keep the status quo?
Rithy? Yeah.
I just answer first.
No,
one.
that's okay.
Oh, really?
That's okay. This isn't a mistake this time. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I would keep the daylight saving times.
Thank you. Roddy?
I would totally keep it the way it is right now. We've been living with it so long.
Sam?
I would support the Atlantic Standard Time.
Jim?
Keep it.
Keep it. Third question, Ryan?
In one word, what one quality do you believe is the most important to possess to hold public office?
Rithy?
Wow, you really come to me, huh? The most the possession of public is to listen to your concern and bring it to the State House.
Roddy?
It is absolutely all about the constituent, respect and listening to them.
Effective communication skills.
And Jim?
Respect.
Last question?
What should the voting age be?
Rithy?
At the local level, I think we should promote it as early as 16. At the national level, we should really at 18 and up.
Roddy?
I think the way it's set right now, we serve the country at 18, so I think that's where it should be.
Sam?
I think we should keep it at 18 as the way it is.
And Jim?
16.
Very good. We're going to resume our regular questioning now with a question posed to Mr. Leary by Rick Sobey from The Sun.
Should concerns over racial profiling derail a distracted driving bill when many neighboring states across the country have such measures on the books?
No, I think, it's obviously a complex issue. I don't think it should. I think the way we should look at it is really in the professional development of law enforcement. I think it's important that when we hire people, and hiring them, you've got to hire people that have, a control over themselves as human beings, because their job is a very difficult job. They're not dealing with human beings when they're at their best. They're dealing with them when they're at their worst. That's really where these issues begin, and then training them, and then continue to train them, and then support them, not only financially with the proper raises that they deserve for the function that they do, but supporting them and their families. I mean, you're a law professional out there trying to save lives, protect lives, dealing with people when they're intoxicated, on drugs, or just really in a bad mood, in a bad way. You are at the worst dealing with a human being. I think some of the laws that we write up are too much. I think we don't support law enforcement enough to take something like this that would be a distracted driving bill and help them support that. It's not easy. It's not a simple issue, and it's kind of more complicated than you can answer in like 1 minute for sure, but that's where I think we need to begin with it.
Thank you. Sam?
Yep. Thank you. I don't think that should be a concern at all. This is all about public safety issue. I believe that a distracted driver is akin to a driver who is under the influence of substance. And the job of our police officers out there, their job is to enforce public safety, to ensure that all the public who are using the roads are safe and sound. And those the drivers are distracting, and then they can cause serious harms and injury to the public. Having said that, I think we also need to provide a lot of training to our law enforcement officer to be sensitive, to be aware of the situation that we're living in now, the sensitivity issue. And I have experience with our law enforcement officer with the city of Lowell. I don't mean to degrade them in any way, but my experience has been not as effective or as fruitful as it should have been.
Thank you, Sam. Rady?
I think, we got kind of two-part question here. Racial profiling, of course, that's totally and a different subject altogether than distracted driving. It is such a problem that we have facing every day. And every time you turn the news, you hear whether it is an accident because of texting or talking on the phone, holding hands. This is why we pass a bill to make sure that all vehicles should have hands-free. With that still, it's all cognizant to you as the driver, and of course to all our younger teens that are driving. They should definitely understand that. When it comes to racial profiling, we all discriminate in many ways without realizing that, whether it is good or bad. And that's the simplicity of this one.
Thank you. And Rithy?
Yes, I would concur that this distracted driving bill should really put a more regulation to that, because I have seen so much about these behaviors of the drivers along the highway, and even those in the city as well. So I think that given saying that we should really have a proper training, because I have seen so many violence also between law enforcement and the drivers. But for that, I think we come from education, that we have to educate our law enforcement, make sure that what they do is really fair to other people. I have a great working relationship with law enforcement. I have no problem with that. But racial profiling, there's a concern also. Last Representative Mam stated, imagine that Representative Mam drives in the street and suddenly just police stop him just because they see him look different. And that's something concerned that we have to make sure that we have much more specific detail about this, the bill.
Thank you, sir. The next round of questions, we'll start with Sam. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Ryan, will you pose this next question, please?
Do you think the recently signed into law red flag bill will significantly curtail gun violence?
I believe so. I think the availability of guns in the hands of those people who shouldn't have guns are a major cause of violence in our community. And have a lot of experience in the mental health industry as a board of directors for over 7 years, I understand that sometimes there's certain situations, emotional or psychological situation, where a person who needed to be treated for emotional issue or psychological issue need to be treated right away. However, if that person is not treated right away and have immediate access to a gun, it can lead to significant violence.
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative?
Thank you. I remember meeting so many Mother Against Violence, and they come to the State House to meet with me. It is very, very sad that in 2018, we're still talking about gun violence. Of course, fortunately enough that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we have one of the toughest, strictest gun law. But with that, we're still doing our very, very best. And this is why I personally asked the legislature and also brought the public safety chairman, came to meet the student body, over 300 plus, in Lowell High School, to talk directly at the legislature, what is their concern, and also what is it that they see that should be working. So they had the ability to talk to the chief of police and the elected official right in front of them. I was proud to do that, to hear from the student directly what their concern is.
Thank you. Rithy?
Just I think that it's a great bill that I'm glad that many Lowell High School students participated and to push to make sure that Red Flag bill passed moving forward. And even those that we have a comprehensive gun control law in the Commonwealth, but always the Red Flag bill coming from student recommendation, that's really the way to go. We have to listen to concerns and make sure the concerns being met at the legislation level. So I think that I'll fully support it. I think we just need to educate our people who own guns to make sure they understand that. People who really want to own guns, make sure they know in detail about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jim, do you want to have another crack at that?
Would you let me? I haven't even answered it yet, but if you let me answer it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's a definite positive. You had a long night, Mr. Scott.
Yep. Long day.
I think long life, kid. Time to go. I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a good thing. I think the problem we're facing with gun laws, I had this on the radio earlier today, and you know what? The problem is the dialogue. We always demonize each other. We demonize the NRA. I mean, the NRA actually does a pretty good job with professional development, training people how to use guns. And every progressive liberal in this room is rolling their eyes saying, he just said something good about the NRA, right, Fred? Absolutely. That's the problem. Everybody gets in their little corners and they don't come out to listen to the other side. Now, I'm not a pro advocate for the NRA. My brother was a member of it. My brother was a Democrat, by the way. I think the problem here is we're not listening to each other and talking. I think people who have mental illness and have disease and have anger issues shouldn't be using any type of weapon. Shouldn't probably be using like hand power tools, much less a handgun. I think that's the problem we're having. We're not listening to each other. I mean, a lot of people use handguns and other types of weapons in a professional manner. I think we need to start listening to each other, though. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. This will go to State Representative Rady Mam.
What is the best way for the state to support community hospitals that suffer from low reimbursement rates compared to the big Boston hospitals?
Yeah, we have such a big problem with this one. When meeting with we have plenty of small community health hospitals here in our city. And to say that we don't have enough funding to support them, it is quite problematic. Now, I couldn't believe that as a state or as a United States of America, we're spending over $3 trillion with $1 trillion in healthcare. And yet, 54% of our professional workers, they are burnt out. So there's something need to be changed. And I think that change is definitely teaching all of our citizens to understand what health is all about, whether that is learning the art of Tai Chi, yoga, and of course knowing more about health benefit. Those are the stuff we need. So we need to educate all of us way to find healthy living.
Thank you, sir. Rithy.
I believe that the community suffer from the reimbursement comparing to Boston Hospital because we need to bring more expertise into our community-based hospital and as well as the community health center as well, so that people can access freely and feel free and feel better and feel more confidence that the community-based hospital provide adequate resources at professional level and at a great knowledge level. And I trust the Lowell Hospital, Lowell General Hospital, so that we have to go do more commercial or publicize about the professional levels, the high skill level that the hospital can bring to the patient. So this is a way that we can bring more resources into the hospital so that we get away from people going to Boston. We can get all the negative things about Boston, traveling, cost expensive, parking, and make sure they utilize the resource that we have here in Lowell.
Thank you. Jim.
No, I think it's more complex issue than looking at community hospitals. You're looking at the whole healthcare industry, and one of the biggest reasons I remain a Democrat is I think we should be having universal health care. This is an area that would really improve community hospitals. Then we got to put the definition of what is a community hospital. We just had Lowell General. Lowell General is really Circle Health. It's not Lowell General. Circle Health doesn't pay any taxes to the city of Lowell. And I know that Representative Nangle was taking a look at the nonprofits in terms of having them pay a tax. And I would definitely take a look at some of these locations like a Circle Health and saying, why aren't you paying a fair share of a tax or whatever the vernacular you want to use to the city of Lowell. I definitely think the smaller hospitals and the smaller communities definitely need help. I think it's a bigger problem than just taking a bit and a piece of the hospital itself. It's a complete healthcare issue. And it's definitely not going to be solved by the state of Massachusetts on its own. It's going to have to be more on a national level. But it's something that we do need to take a stab at and definitely need to make sure there's improvements. One of the other areas is taking a look at what some of these CEOs at these hospitals make. Circle Health would be the perfect example. Nobody wants to touch that because it's a panacea to say it. I'm about to get my head kicked in for saying it, but you know what? Why are they making so much money? It's an interesting thing. They're a nonprofit, or are they?
Thank you, Jim. And Sam Meas.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the issue here is just not just our local community hospital that are having issue, but it's the entire healthcare issue that need to be revamped. I, for one, believe in affordable healthcare. I think that everybody should have access to affordable healthcare. Now, to answer this question in 1 minute, I support the levying fee on big hospitals so that we can use some of those fees to reimburse the local hospital. Two is to encourage the usage and utilization of the small community hospital. The three is to bring in expertise and/or partnership with major hospital in Boston. For example, at Cedar Lawrence, Lawrence General, they have brought in the partnership with the, I believe the Boston Medical, Children's Hospital. And now Lawrence General has become a level 3 trauma center that has been fully utilized. So that's a great progress. So we need to look at those models like that in order to increase the utilization rate and the reimbursement rates.
Thank you. Well, we've gone through 11 questions. We'll now move to closing statements. And Rithy, you can start first, and we'll just come right down the podium, please. 90 seconds.
Wow, I thought I was given only 60 seconds, but I get 90 seconds. That's good. That's better. 35 years ago, I came to this country as a refugee and a survivor of the killing fields. I came at age 21 with no English and not a penny to my name. But I had the opportunity to go to school and finish my bachelor degree in 7 years and get my master's degree in 6 years. I have experience working with the United Nations, Boston Police, local community, and as a high school guidance counselor. I have helped many students, many people from all walks of life, to find hope, education, and economic opportunity, just like I did with my sons. Ravi graduated from Wesleyan University, and Ed, currently a student at Brown University. I have been a Democrat and a union member all my working life. And I stand by the value, and the principle of which. You have heard all of us respond to our questions. Now close your eyes and without hearing the names, remember what you have heard and vote for the candidate who has experience, dedication, and courage to bring your voice to the State House with him. I'm Ongurati, the last on the ballot for the state job.
Thank you, sir.
I take you anytime with me.
State Representative Mam.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to UMass Lowell and the Sun, and thank you to all of you for taking your busy schedule and time to be here to listen to all of the candidates this evening. My name is Rady Mam. I'm your state representative, and I'm truly honored to represent you every waking second. I am still excited to listen, to hear your concern, but most importantly, I still believe that my job is a public servant, first and foremost. That's what it all should be about. And my job is also to represent you and to bring the well-being of all of us in all citizenship. I would appreciate you sending me back to Beacon Hill to continue fighting for you and would always love to hear from you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity again.
Thank you. Sam Meas.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, UMass Lowell and the Lowell Sun for organizing this debate tonight. And I also want to thank the audience and those people who are watching at home, or will be watching at home. My name is Sam Meas. I'm a Democratic candidate for the 18th Middlesex District. I would like to ask for your vote on September 4th, 2018. On a personal level, I came to this country in 1986 as a war orphan and was adopted by an American family. I have a bachelor's degree in finance from Virginia Tech in 1996. On a professional level, I have over 20 years in private sectors and community services experience. I work for Fortune 500 companies such as General Motors, Asset Management Company, BlackRock, State Street Global Research, State Street Global Advisor, and Fidelities. I work as a board of directors for many nonprofit agencies such as the Professional Development Centers of Andover, the North Suffolk Mental Health Association, where I was a vice chairman of the board, where I oversaw a $47 million operations. In the private sectors, I manage small to medium-sized business, as small as $200,000 and as large as $20 million. So I believe that I'm the best candidate among all of these guys. So please vote for me. And the reason that
Go ahead, just finish your thought.
Yeah, okay, so should I'm elected, I promise that I will have a 72-hour constituency response time. I will hold district hours. I will hold regular quarterly meetings in the districts, and I will attend neighborhood meetings. Thank you.
And lastly, Jim Leary, I won't forget you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Chris Scott did an outstanding job tonight. You are like a phenomenal moderator. You're the best. Absolutely the best.
You want to get more votes?
Not a good reporter, but you're a good moderator.
I buy ink by the barrel, Jim.
I know. I can't read anymore. My eyesight's going. I just want to say thank you very much for everybody taking the time. Thank you to LTC. Thank you to UMass Lowell. Thank you very much to the Lowell Sun for putting this on. Unfortunately, this is the only question and answer period that we'll have, and that's too bad for democracy. I've been fortunate to represent many of you in this room for the past 12 years as either a school committee member or a city councilor, and I've been, it's been an honor. Met a lot of great people, helped a lot of people, been a part of things that have other folks' ideas that have been really good for the city, and I've been able to vote, positive for it, or fight against something that I didn't think was positive. Made some mistakes along the way, learned a lot, even changed my mind occasionally, and listened to other people and what their opinions are. That's something a lot of people say, Jim, you gotta, you're not only outstandingly good looking, but you got a really bad temper. But I think I've worked on that, and I think I've improved that dramatically. But one of the things I'm most proud of is that every single member I've served with on the school committee and the city council, I've had a motion with. And I didn't agree with everybody that I served with, and some people I didn't even like, but I've had motions with them because I always wanted to look for the better of what's going on in the community. And I know there were people in the room that were a lot smarter than I was, who had great ideas that I wanted to be a part of. And that's what I want to do as a state representative, is build relationships. And that's what I'll do. I'm respectfully asking for your vote, and I'll promise to work really hard for you. Thank you very much, and have a great
Thank you, Jim. Let's hear it for the candidates.